What's up, guys? Welcome to Stock Talk with Nico Criticos. Today, we're going to do some stock analysis for Tilray Brands, ticker TLRY. So this stock has been very volatile over the last 5 years. If we go back to 2018, late 2018, it was $148 a share, which is insane. And then over the last couple of years, it's come down all the way down to about $4. Today, we're sitting at $2.61. or a $1.8 billion market cap. So if you don't know, Tilray Brands is pretty much a cannabis company. And in the most recent news, they actually got a deal with Anheuser-Busch and they bought several of their beer brands. So you can look at that as a positive thing or a negative thing. But we're going to run through all the different numbers here and see if this stock is a good investment or not. So we're looking at a cannabis industry valued at $13 billion as of last year, and it's expected to grow about 14% per year for the rest of this decade. Now, if we look at Tilray's revenue, we're going to see on average they're growing 85%, which is phenomenal, right? And that sounds great. But that's not the whole story, because although they're growing revenue, not only was last year a little bit stagnant, but then we go to net income. And that's where things are getting worse, because although they're growing revenue, their net income is consistently getting worse. It's down to negative $1.4 billion in the trailing 12 months. And, right off the bat, that makes me think I'm not too much of a fan of this stock. As for the P ratio, we can't really use that. So we're going to use price to sales. We're looking at a price to sales of 2.8. That's kind of where it's been the last couple of years. I mean, considering in 5 years ago, it was trading at, who knows, 10 times plus price to sales or 20 times price to sales. This 2.8 range is fine. That's a healthy range. So that's not bad. Then if we're looking at their innovation, I would say yes, because not only is, marijuana kind of on the verge of becoming legal. So, that's one thing. And then they're also getting into different cannabis beverages, and how we just saw they're also buying out, beer brands and stuff like that. The market share, they only have 5% roughly. It's kind of hard to tell because we're so early on in this market. There's so many competitors. So, this would kind of be a common thing to see, where when you have so many people competing, everyone's going to have a small market share. And then as the market gets more developed, we should see things kind of, condense a little bit more. We should see certain players become bigger and gain more market share. ROI is, of course, negative. The equity has doubled in the last 3 years. If we want to look exactly at, what's happened, we're going to see that, from that perspective, it actually is a positive thing. But still, after the last couple of years, I kind of have changed my perspective on investing in money losing companies. But we're looking at equity of 1.3 billion 3 years ago, and now we're at 3.3 billion. So they have some improvement there, right? Because the company is only trades at a $1.8 billion market cap, right? So $3.3 billion of equity is pretty strong. Now, although we have to keep this in mind that 90% of it is in goodwill and intangibles, which is not what I want to see, really, because that means that could, drop in half in, one day pretty much. So $2 billion is goodwill, which means that they're getting that probably from acquisitions and stuff like that. So I don't really like seeing that either. That means they don't really have hard assets, right? Current assets are only 700 million. Then we're going to go to share count decrease. Of course, I mean, you normally would expect for a company like this at this stage to have, increasing shares, but theirs is just super bad. If we go, let's take a look. Shares outstanding. Over the last 10 years, on average, they're doing 75% increase. Now, in the last 5 years, it's only 35%. So maybe it's getting better. These earlier years, they were, probably raising more money and stuff. But still, even in the last couple of years, we're looking at, 28, 30%. That's still super high. That means that the next couple of years could be, 10, 20, 30%. So that's just going to keep diluting shareholders. And, that's why the stock, that's a big part of why the stock chart looks the way it does. Now, this huge spike that was like a retail trader type of thing. But so that's kind of artificial. But coming down from 2019 all the way to where it is now, a lot of that has to do with that diluting the shareholders is definitely a contributing factor. Assets to goodwill, right? They're 4-to-1, so that's good, I guess. But again, it's mostly in goodwill. Then we have profit margin over 10%. No, negative. Cash and receivables They have 700 million, but no income, no dividend. The company's only 5 years old too. That's another thing to keep in mind, which in my eyes, I don't like that. So the company was really founded 2018. It's a young company. It's a small company. So I like to have a company that's at least 10 years old and really has been public for I like it to be public for like 10 years. And then finally, growing free cash flow. No, we can take a look at their free cash flow chart, and what we're going to see is that is negative as well. Now, did it make a huge improvement? Yes, from negative 200 million to only negative 12 million. That's a big improvement, but that's still not the same thing as positive cash flow. So who knows? It could be years before this company gets to a point where they're putting up positive net income and they have strong enough market share and they have strong enough return on capital profit margin numbers to where they can actually make a profit. But for the time being, I'm not interested at all. Things don't look too great for this company. Again, a big part of it too is that the cannabis industry is still, in its infancy. So we have to kind of wait and see who the big players are going to be, which could take, 5 years, if not longer, to see who actually makes it to the top. But yeah, that is my analysis for Tilray Brands. Thank you for watching. If there's any other stocks you want me to analyze, please comment down below.